My name is Vivian. I'm 46 years old, and I'm a certified public accountant from Charlotte, North Carolina. 7 months ago, my husband of 18 years sat across from me at our kitchen table and swore on our children's lives that he had nothing to hide. "Check my phone," he said, sliding it across the table. "Check my email. Check anything you want. I'm an open book." So I did. I checked everything, and he was right. There was nothing there. No suspicious texts, no secret emails, no trace of the affair I was certain he was having. He'd wiped it all clean, every digital footprint, every shred of evidence that might have proven what I knew in my gut was true. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that 3 months earlier, I'd set up family sharing on our iCloud account. And one file, just one, had automatically synced to my iPad before he had the chance to delete it. It was a spreadsheet, a simple Excel document with dates, dollar amounts, and notes that read like a horror novel. 15 years of stolen money. A secret life I knew nothing about. And in the final column, a detailed plan for how to make sure I never found out. Before I tell you what was in that file, and what happened when I confronted my husband with it, I need you to do something for me. If stories about women who discovered the truth when they were meant to stay blind resonate with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop your location in the comments. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. I met Dennis Morgan at an accounting conference in Atlanta in the spring of 2003. I was 25 years old, recently licensed, working at a small firm in Charlotte that specialized in tax preparation for local businesses. The conference was my first. My boss had sent me to network and learn, which mostly meant I wandered between sessions feeling out of place among all the senior CPAs with their decades of experience and easy confidence. Dennis found me hiding in a corner during the networking reception, nursing a glass of wine and pretending to check my phone so I'd look busy instead of lost. "You look exactly as overwhelmed as I feel," he said, appearing beside me with an easy smile that immediately put me at ease. "First conference? That obvious?" "Only to someone who spent his first 3 conferences doing exactly what you're doing right now, hiding in corners, pretending to be very important and busy." He extended his hand. "Dennis Morgan. I'm a financial advisor in Raleigh, and I promise I'm not here to sell you anything or make awkward small talk about synergy." I laughed despite myself, a real laugh, the first one I'd managed all day. "Vivian Hayes. I'm a CPA in Charlotte, and I appreciate the disclaimer about synergy." "The worst word in the English language," Dennis agreed solemnly, followed closely by leverage when used as a verb. We talked for the rest of the evening. Dennis was easy to be with in a way I wasn't used to. Charming without being slick. Intelligent without being condescending. Genuinely curious about my life and work in a way that felt rare and precious. He asked about my path to accounting, my dreams for my career, even my hobbies outside of work. "What do you do when you're not staring at spreadsheets?" he asked. "I read. A lot. Mystery novels, mostly. The old-fashioned kind with clues and deduction and a satisfying conclusion." I felt myself blushing. That sounds boring when I say it out loud. It sounds perfect. Someone who loves solving puzzles for fun and for work? That's not boring, that's consistent character development. He smiled. "I bet you're the person everyone asks to check their math." "Since I was 12 years old. See? Destiny." By the time the reception ended, I'd given him my card and agreed to have dinner with him the following evening. That dinner turned into 3 years of dating. Long distance at first, then increasingly intertwined as we found excuses to be in each other's cities. Dennis would drive to Charlotte for weekend visits, arriving with flowers and elaborate plans for restaurants he'd researched all week. Or I'd take the train to Raleigh for romantic evenings in his downtown apartment, cooking together in his tiny kitchen, falling asleep on his couch, watching movies we'd never finish. He met my family that first Christmas, driving 3 hours to spend the holiday with my parents in their modest house outside Charlotte. My skeptical mother was won over when Dennis spent an hour looking at her photo albums, asking questions about our family history with genuine interest. My gruff father, who trusted no one easily and had scared off every boyfriend I'd ever brought home, admitted after the visit that Dennis seemed like a good man. "He looks you in the eye when he talks," my father said. "Firm handshake, not trying to impress anyone, just being himself." My younger sister Tamara, always protective of me since childhood, gave her assessment over coffee after Dennis left. "He's good-looking, he's smart, and he looks at you like you're the only person in the room. What's the catch?" "There isn't one," I said. "At least, not one I've found." "Then stop looking for one and just be happy." "You deserve this, Viv." I believed her. I believed everything about Dennis, his stories, his devotion, his apparent commitment to building something real with me. He proposed on a trip to Asheville, in front of a waterfall at sunset, with a ring he'd had custom designed based on a casual comment I'd made months earlier about vintage jewelry styles. I'd mentioned once that I loved Art Deco settings, the geometric patterns, the elegant simplicity. Somehow he'd remembered, found a jeweler, commissioned something perfect. "How did you know?" I asked, staring at the ring through tears. "I pay attention," he said simply. "You're worth paying attention to." Our wedding was elegant and intimate. 100 guests at a historic estate outside Charlotte, spring flowers everywhere. My father walking me down the aisle with tears streaming down his face. Dennis's vows were beautiful, full of specific memories and promises that made everyone cry. "I vow to be your partner in everything," he said, holding my hands in his. "In joy and in struggle, in success and in failure, in every season of our lives. You will never face anything alone. I promise you that, Vivian. I will never give you a reason to doubt me." I promised him the same. I meant every word. I had no idea he didn't. The first years of our marriage were genuinely happy, or so I believed. Dennis transferred his practice to Charlotte, joining a wealth management firm where his client list grew steadily. He was good at his job, good at making people trust him with their money, good at projecting the competence and reliability that financial professionals need. I continued at my accounting firm, working long hours during tax season, building a reputation as someone thorough and precise. I made partner at 32, young for the industry, a point of pride for both of us. We bought a beautiful house in Myers Park, a historic neighborhood with tree-lined streets and neighbors who'd lived there for generations. The house needed work, and we did most of it ourselves. Weekends spent painting rooms, refinishing the original hardwood floors, learning to compromise on whose taste would prevail in which decisions. "Your color in the living room, my choice for the kitchen," Dennis proposed early on. "Fair?" "Fair. But I get veto power on any furniture that looks like it belongs in a sports bar." He laughed. "Deal, though I'm hurt that you think I have sports bar taste. I've seen your college apartment photos. I know what you're capable of." We were happy, or I thought we were. We had dinner parties with friends, vacations to beaches and mountains, the quiet rhythms of a life being built together. Dennis handled our finances. He was the financial advisor, after all. It made sense for the expert to manage the money. I trusted him completely. When I got pregnant with our daughter Madison, Dennis was overjoyed. He read every parenting book he could find, attended every doctor's appointment, painted the nursery himself in the sage green I'd chosen after weeks of agonizing over color samples. Madison was born on a summer morning, 7 pounds even, with Dennis's blue eyes and my dark curly hair. He held her in the delivery room and looked at me like I'd given him everything he'd ever wanted. "She's perfect," he whispered. "You're perfect. We're going to be so happy." 2 years later, our son Ethan was born, louder than his sister, more demanding, with a laugh that filled every room he entered. Our family felt complete. Our house was full of noise and love and the beautiful chaos of young children. Dennis handled everything financial, paying bills, managing investments, filing our taxes despite my being a CPA. "You do this all day at work," he'd say. "Let me take it off your plate at home." It seemed thoughtful, considerate, like a husband protecting his wife from unnecessary burden. I didn't realize he was protecting himself, keeping me away from the evidence of what he was really doing. Looking back, I can see the hairline cracks that were forming even then. Small inconsistencies I explained away, cash withdrawals I didn't recognize, credit card charges that seemed unusual. But Dennis always had explanations, always had reasonable answers that made my questions feel paranoid. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. He was supposed to protect me. I had no idea what he was really doing. I had no idea what that trust would cost me. The first time I noticed something was truly wrong, Madison was 12 and Ethan was 10. It was a Saturday morning in March, and I was doing something I rarely did, going through the mail before Dennis got to it. Usually he sorted the mail. He said it was his way of taking one small task off my plate, protecting me from the boring stuff so I could focus on what mattered. At the time, I thought it was thoughtful. Now I know it was strategic. The envelope that caught my attention was from a bank I didn't recognize, First Coastal in Wilmington. It was addressed to Dennis, marked as a statement. Without really thinking about it, maybe some instinct I didn't know I had, I opened it. The statement showed an account with a balance of $127,000, an account entirely in Dennis's name, an account I had never seen, never heard of, never knew existed. When I confronted him that evening, after the kids were in bed, Dennis didn't miss a beat. "It's a business account," he said smoothly. "Separate from our personal finances. I keep client funds there sometimes. It's an industry thing. I didn't mention it because it didn't seem relevant to our household budget." $127,000 didn't seem relevant? "It's not our money, Viv. It's client money. I'm just managing it." He took my hand, his expression warm and reassuring. "I should have told you about it. You're right. I just didn't want you to worry about work stuff when you've got so much on your plate already." It made sense when he explained it. Everything Dennis said always made sense. That was his gift, making the suspicious seem innocent, the worrying seem routine. But something had shifted in me that day. Some small seed of doubt had been planted, and no matter how many reasonable explanations Dennis provided, I couldn't make it disappear entirely. Over the months that followed, I started paying more attention. I noticed things I'd been ignoring for years. The way Dennis always collected the mail, the way he handled all our tax preparation himself, despite my being a CPA, the way he deflected whenever I asked specific questions about our investments. "You don't need to worry about the details," he'd say. "That's my job. Just trust me." Trust him. He said that a lot. Too much, maybe. People who deserve trust don't usually have to ask for it. My sister Tamara noticed the change in me before I fully understood it myself. "Something's wrong," she said over lunch one afternoon. "You've been distracted for weeks. Is everything okay with you and Dennis?" "Everything's fine," I said automatically. "Just work stress." "Viv?" She set down her fork and looked at me directly. "I've known you my whole life. You're not stressed about work. You're stressed about something at home. What is it?" I hesitated, then told her about the bank statement, about the explanations that made sense but didn't feel right, about the growing unease I couldn't shake. "Maybe it's nothing," I said. "Maybe I'm being paranoid. Or maybe your instincts are telling you something." Tamara leaned forward. "You're a CPA, Viv. You literally do this for a living. You look at numbers and find what doesn't add up. If something feels wrong to you, it probably is." She was right. I was trained to spot financial irregularities. I'd built a career on it, and something about my own household finances was triggering every alarm I had. The kids noticed the tension too. Madison, at 13, was old enough to pick up on the subtle shifts between her parents. "Are you and Dad fighting?" she asked one evening while we cooked dinner together. "We're not fighting, sweetheart. Why do you ask?" "You're weird around each other. Like, polite, too polite." She stirred the pasta, not meeting my eyes. "My friend Chloe's parents got divorced last year. They were polite right before it happened." "Daddy and I are not getting divorced," I assured her. "We're just going through a busy time. Adult stuff. Nothing you need to worry about." But she did worry. I could see it in her face, in the way she watched us at dinner, in the careful way she navigated between us. My daughter was 12 years old and already learning that the adults she trusted might not have everything under control. The financial red flags continued to accumulate. I started secretly checking our credit report and found accounts I didn't recognize. Credit cards with high balances, a car loan for a vehicle we didn't own, a mortgage payment to a property in Wilmington I'd never heard of. When I asked Dennis about them, he had explanations for everything. "Identity theft," he said about the credit cards. "I've been working with the banks to resolve it. Didn't want to worry you." "Client financing," he said about the car loan. "Sometimes I help clients secure vehicles. It's part of the service I provide." "Investment property," he said about the Wilmington mortgage. "I've been meaning to tell you about it. Great opportunity. We'll make money on the rental income." Each explanation was plausible. Each answer was reasonable. And yet the more he explained, the less I believed him. The affair became impossible to deny around the same time, the late nights that stretched later and later. The phone calls he took in another room, the cologne I didn't recognize on his shirts when he came home from client dinners. "Who is she?" I asked one night, too tired to pretend anymore. Dennis's face went carefully blank. "Who is who?" "The woman you're seeing. The one you smell like when you come home at midnight. The one you're texting when you think I'm not paying attention." For a moment, just a moment, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Surprise, maybe, that I'd finally said it out loud. Then the mask slid back into place. "There's no one, Vivian. I don't know where this is coming from, but you're imagining things." He reached for my hand. "Maybe you should see someone. Talk to a therapist. All this paranoia isn't healthy." He made me feel crazy. He made me doubt my own perceptions, my own instincts, my own ability to recognize what was right in front of me. That's what gaslighters do. They make you the problem. They make your accurate observations seem like symptoms of instability. They make you apologize for noticing their lies. The first major incident happened on our 15th wedding anniversary. Dennis had promised something special. A weekend getaway to the mountains, just the two of us, like we used to do before the kids were born. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks. Part of me hoped it would be a turning point, a chance to reconnect, to address the distance that had grown between us, to find our way back to each other. The morning we were supposed to leave, Dennis's phone rang at 6 a.m. I heard him in the bathroom, speaking in low tones. Then he emerged with an apologetic expression I'd learned to dread. "I can't go," he said. "Emergency with a major client. Their portfolio is tanking. I have to be there to manage it." "On our anniversary?" "I know. I'm so sorry, Viv. We'll reschedule. I'll make it up to you. You always say that. You never do. Something shifted in his expression, a flash of irritation, quickly suppressed. That's not fair. I work hard to provide for this family. Sometimes that means sacrifices. Sacrifices for who? I'm the one sitting at home while you're always somewhere else. I'm the one making excuses to the kids about why Daddy missed another event. I'm the one. I don't have time for this. He grabbed his keys, his phone, his laptop bag. We'll talk when I get back. He didn't come back that night, or the next night. When he finally returned on Monday, he claimed the client crisis had required around-the-clock attention. I slept at the office, he said. You can call my assistant if you don't believe me. I didn't call his assistant. I already knew what she'd say. Whatever Dennis had instructed her to say. He was careful that way. Meticulous. Every lie had backup. That weekend, while Dennis was supposedly saving a client's portfolio, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private investigator. It took me a long time to make the call. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a coffee shop for 45 minutes, staring at the phone number I'd found online, telling myself I was being paranoid, telling myself there had to be an innocent explanation for everything. But I kept thinking about that bank statement, about the way Dennis had explained it away so smoothly, about all the other things over the years that hadn't quite added up. I made the call. Marcus Chen was a former police detective who now specialized in marital investigations. His office was in a nondescript building downtown, the kind of place you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. I sat across from his desk, feeling like I was betraying my marriage, betraying Dennis, betraying everything I'd built over the past 15 years. I need to know the truth, I told him. Whatever it is. I can't keep living in this fog of uncertainty. Most people in your situation feel the same way, Marcus said. He was in his 50s, with gray temples and a steady gaze that suggested he'd seen everything. They come in feeling guilty for investigating, like they're violating their spouse's trust. But by the time I give them my report, they're grateful they did. What do you usually find? Depends on the case. Sometimes it's nothing, just a spouse with unusual habits that look suspicious but have innocent explanations. But when someone comes in with the kind of story you're telling me, with years of discrepancies and hidden accounts and behavior changes, he shook his head. Usually there's something there. I paid his retainer and went home to wait. The waiting was the worst part. For 3 weeks, I moved through my life in a daze, going to work, making dinner, helping with homework, while Marcus and his team investigated my husband. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be him with news. Every time Dennis smiled at me, I wondered what he was hiding behind that smile. The report came on a Thursday afternoon. Marcus called and asked me to come to his office. He said it was better to discuss these things in person. I knew from his tone that it was bad. I sat in the same chair where I'd hired him 3 weeks earlier, and he slid a thick folder across his desk. I'm sorry, he said. This is worse than I expected. The folder contained everything. Photographs of Dennis with a woman I didn't know, entering restaurants, walking on a beach, kissing in a doorway. Her name was Crystal Hawkins. She was 34, a personal trainer at the gym where Dennis supposedly worked out. They'd been seeing each other since Ethan was 7 years old. 3 years. 3 years of lies. But the affair was almost secondary to what else Marcus had discovered. The property in Wilmington wasn't an investment. It was a house Dennis had bought for Crystal. A 4-bedroom colonial with a pool and a 3-car garage, purchased 18 months ago for $680,000. The mortgage was in Dennis's name. The property deed listed him as sole owner. There were more bank accounts, not just the one in Wilmington, but half a dozen scattered across the state. Investment portfolios I'd never seen. Credit cards with balances totaling over $200,000. A car loan for a BMW X5 that I'd never seen in our driveway, but that sat in Crystal's garage. He's been living a double life, Marcus told me. The financial advisor persona, the devoted husband and father, that's one life. But there's another one entirely, a separate identity with a separate partner and a separate set of finances. How is that possible? We've been married 18 years. How could I not know? People like your husband are skilled at compartmentalization. They keep their worlds completely separate. Different phones, different accounts, different schedules. As long as you never look too closely, and why would you when you trust him? The deception can continue indefinitely. I spent an hour looking through the photographs. Dennis and Crystal at restaurants. Dennis and Crystal on what looked like a vacation, some tropical beach I didn't recognize. Dennis in Crystal's kitchen, cooking dinner, wearing an apron I'd never seen. In every photo, he looked happy, relaxed, like a man living his best life with the woman he loved. How much? My voice came out as a whisper. How much has he taken? Marcus consulted his notes. Based on what I've been able to trace, approximately $1.2 million over the past 15 years. Siphoned from your joint accounts, your retirement funds, your children's college savings. He's been systematic about it, small amounts at first, gradually increasing as he got more confident. $1.2 million. Everything we'd worked for. Everything I'd trusted him to protect. There's something else, Marcus said, his expression growing even graver. Something you need to see. He slid another folder across his desk. Inside were screenshots from Crystal's social media accounts, private accounts that Marcus had somehow gained access to. In them, Dennis was smiling, relaxed, happy. Photos with captions like, "My love," and "Forever and always," and "Can't wait to start our life together." He's been telling Crystal that he's going to leave you, Marcus explained. Has been for years. But lately, the timeline has gotten more specific. There are emails. I was able to obtain them through some creative research, where he lays out exactly how he plans to do it. I opened the email printouts and started reading. They were between Dennis and Crystal, spanning several years. In them, my husband discussed me with casual contempt, calling me boring, suspicious, a problem to be solved. He complained about having to maintain the pretense of our marriage. He promised Crystal that soon, very soon, they'd be together for real. And in the most recent email, dated just 2 weeks earlier, Dennis had laid out his complete plan. The timing has to be right, he wrote. I've been moving money for years, but there's still the house and the retirement accounts she knows about. I need to drain those without her noticing, then file for divorce and claim she mismanaged our finances. I'll say she has a spending problem, that she's been hiding purchases. By the time she figures out what happened, we'll be long gone. He was planning to leave me with nothing, not just emotionally, financially. He was going to drain every asset, frame me as the irresponsible one, and disappear with his mistress. And I never would have known. If I hadn't opened that bank statement, if I hadn't hired Marcus, if I hadn't trusted my instincts when everyone, including Dennis, was telling me I was paranoid. I sat with those folders for a long time in Marcus Chen's quiet office, trying to process the magnitude of what I'd discovered. 15 years of marriage, 18 years of knowing this man, and the whole time, he'd been stealing from me, lying to me, planning to destroy everything we'd built together. What do I do now? I asked. That depends on what you want, Marcus said. You can confront him, but without proper legal preparation, he'll likely accelerate his exit plan. You can file for divorce, but if he realizes you're onto him, he might hide more assets. Or... He paused. You can turn this into a criminal case. Criminal? What your husband has been doing is called financial abuse. It's also embezzlement from your joint assets, fraud in the concealment of marital property, and potentially tax evasion depending on how he reported these hidden accounts. Marcus's expression was grim but professional. This isn't just divorce material. This is prison material. I thought about Dennis sitting in my kitchen, telling me everything was fine. I thought about him kissing Crystal in that photograph while I sat at home believing he was at a client dinner. I thought about my children's college funds, emptied without my knowledge, spent on a woman I'd never met. "Tell me what I need to do," I said, "to make sure he never gets away with this." Marcus nodded. "The first step is finding a lawyer, someone who specializes in complex financial divorces, someone who can coordinate with the district attorney's office when the time comes." He wrote a name on a piece of paper and handed it to me. "Patricia Aldridge. She's the best in the state. Tell her I sent you." I took the paper. I was going to destroy my husband's life the way he'd been planning to destroy mine. But first, I was going to get evidence. More evidence. Everything I could find. And that's when I set up the iCloud sharing that would save me. If this story is resonating with you, if you've ever suspected that the person you trusted most was hiding something devastating, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know, and trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. I sat with that folder for a long time, trying to process what I was seeing. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of trust. And the whole time, Dennis had been stealing from me, lying to me, planning to destroy everything we'd built together. But I'm a CPA. I'm trained to follow the money, to document discrepancies, to build cases out of numbers that don't add up. And if Dennis thought he was smarter than me, if he thought he could steal over $1 million and walk away clean, he was about to learn how wrong he was. I went home that night and started my own investigation. The first thing I did was set up family sharing on our iCloud account. Dennis wasn't particularly tech-savvy. He used his phone and computer for work, but he didn't understand the intricacies of cloud storage and automatic backups. I knew that if I could get his devices syncing to a shared account, I might capture evidence before he had a chance to destroy it. It took some careful maneuvering. I told Dennis I wanted to set up family sharing so we could track the kids' locations, a reasonable request for parents of a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. He agreed without much thought, not realizing that his own devices would now be backing up to the same cloud storage I could access. For 3 months, I watched and waited. I didn't confront him. I didn't let on that I knew anything. I played the role of oblivious wife while secretly documenting every financial transaction, every suspicious email, every piece of evidence I could find. I copied bank statements. I photographed credit card bills. I built a spreadsheet of my own, tracking the money Dennis had moved over the years, documenting the systematic theft he'd been perpetrating against his own family. And then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday, around 10 p.m. The kids were asleep. Madison had finished her homework early and gone to bed at 9, while Ethan had read until his eyes started closing. I was in bed myself, not sleeping, just scrolling through my iPad the way I did most nights when sleep wouldn't come. A notification popped up on my screen. A new file had been added to our shared iCloud storage. At first, I didn't think much of it. Dennis was always creating documents for work, client reports, investment analyses, the kind of spreadsheets financial advisors live by. I almost ignored it, almost went back to the article I'd been reading. But something made me tap on the notification. Some instinct, some whisper from my accountant's brain that had been noticing discrepancies for years. Some voice that said, "Look at this. This matters." The file was an Excel spreadsheet titled Master Plan Dex LSX. My heart started pounding before I even opened it. Master plan. What kind of master plan did my husband have that I knew nothing about? I tapped on the file. It took a moment to load, and in that moment, I considered closing it. Maybe it was just a client document with a dramatic name. Maybe it was something innocent that would make me feel foolish for snooping. But it wasn't innocent. It was the opposite of innocent. The spreadsheet was organized the way Dennis organized everything, meticulously, professionally, with color-coded tabs and clearly labeled columns. The first tab was titled Assets and contained a list of every hidden account he'd created over the past 15 years. Account numbers, balances, monthly contributions. Everything I'd been trying to track down, all laid out in neat rows. The second tab was titled Timeline and contained dates going back over a decade. Each date had an entry describing what Dennis had done. Moved $5,000 to Coastal Savings, purchased Crystal's car, made deposit on Wilmington property. It was a log of his theft, a diary of his betrayal. The third tab was titled Exit Strategy. I read it 3 times before I could believe what I was seeing. Dennis had laid out in explicit detail exactly how he planned to leave me. He was going to drain our joint accounts during a business trip the following month. He was going to file for divorce while out of state, claiming that I had been financially irresponsible. He was going to accuse me of hiding purchases and mismanaging money, using my supposed instability as leverage. He'd even planned what he would say to the kids. He was going to tell them that Mommy had problems, that he'd tried to help but couldn't, that he had to leave for his own mental health. He was going to paint himself as the victim and me as the villain. And then, once everything was liquidated and he'd extracted every penny, he was going to move to Wilmington with Crystal and start fresh. New life, new family, new everything. His notes were clinical, detached. He referred to me as the obstacle. He referred to our children's feelings as temporary complications. He had calculated the exact dollar amount our marriage was worth to him, down to the last cent. I sat in my bed, in the house we'd shared for 15 years, and read my husband's blueprint for destroying me. Then I downloaded a copy. I saved it to my personal email. I saved it to a secure cloud storage only I could access. I saved it to a thumb drive that I hid in my dresser, behind my jewelry box. 3 copies, 3 locations, 3 backups that Dennis would never find. I knew what I was looking at. Evidence. Proof. The ammunition I would need to take him down. Then I waited. I lay in bed for hours, unable to sleep, listening to the house creak and settle, listening to Dennis's breathing in the room down the hall, where he'd gone after returning from whatever late meeting had kept him out that night. He was going to wake up tomorrow morning and delete this file. I was certain of it. Whatever had possessed him to create it on a device that synced to our shared iCloud, he would realize the mistake and eliminate the evidence. But it would be too late. I already had it. The document that would destroy him was safe. The next morning, Dennis's demeanor was different, tense, nervous. He kept checking his phone, his expression flickering between worry and something darker. "Is everything okay?" I asked, playing my role perfectly, the concerned wife, the oblivious spouse. "Fine, just work stuff." He didn't meet my eyes. "Hey, have you seen my laptop charger? I need to grab something from my computer." I watched him go to his office, heard the rapid clicking of keys. He was deleting. I knew it without having to see. He was erasing every trace of the file he'd created, every piece of evidence that might reveal his plan. What he didn't know was that it was already too late. iCloud had done its job. The file was safe. And his carefully constructed scheme was about to collapse. The morning after I discovered the spreadsheet, I called in sick to work and drove to my lawyer's office. I'd never needed a divorce attorney before, So I asked around, carefully, discreetly, not wanting word to get back to Dennis. A colleague at my firm recommended Patricia Aldridge, a partner at a family law practice known for handling complex financial divorces. "She's a shark," my colleague said. "But she's your shark. If there's money to be found, she'll find it." Patricia's office was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and polished wood and the quiet efficiency of expensive legal practice. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Tell me everything," she said after I'd given her the basics. "Don't leave anything out." I told her about the hidden accounts, the property in Wilmington, the affair with Crystal, the private investigator's report. And then I showed her the spreadsheet, the file that had accidentally synced to my iPad, the complete blueprint of Dennis's plan to destroy me. Patricia studied the document for a long time, her expression growing grimmer with each page. "This is extraordinary," she finally said. "In 30 years of practice, I've never seen someone stupid enough to put their entire scheme in writing." He didn't think anyone would see it. He deleted it almost immediately, the next morning. He had no idea iCloud had already synced it to my device. "His mistake is your gift." She set down the document. "This spreadsheet is essentially a confession. It proves intent to defraud, intent to hide assets, intent to manipulate the divorce proceedings before they've even started. With this, we don't just win the divorce, we potentially pursue criminal charges." "Criminal charges?" "What your husband has been doing is called financial abuse. It's also embezzlement from your joint assets, fraud in the concealment of marital property, and potentially tax evasion depending on how he reported these hidden accounts." Patricia's smile was thin and sharp. Dennis thought he was clever. He was wrong. Over the next several weeks, we built the case. Patricia brought in a forensic accountant, a colleague of mine, actually, someone I trusted completely, to trace every dollar Dennis had moved over the past 15 years. The final tally was staggering, $1.4 million, even more than the private investigator had estimated, stolen from our joint accounts, our retirement funds, our children's college savings, funneled into hidden accounts, spent on a second life with Crystal, invested in property and vehicles I'd never known existed. "He's been planning this for years," the forensic accountant told us. "The systematic nature of the theft, the gradual escalation, the careful documentation, he's been building toward this exit for at least a decade. And he thought he'd get away with it? He thought he was smarter than everyone else. Classic narcissist pattern. They all think they're the exception, the one who won't get caught." She shook her head. "They never are." The most painful discovery came when we looked at what Dennis had done to our children's college funds. Madison and Ethan each had 529 accounts that we'd been contributing to since they were born. According to our annual statements, those accounts held over $80,000 combined. According to the actual bank records Patricia subpoenaed, they held less than $3,000. Dennis had been sending us falsified statements for years, creating documents that showed healthy balances while he drained the actual accounts. Our children's futures, the education we'd been saving for since they were babies. He'd stolen that too. "I want full custody," I told Patricia, "and I want him charged with everything you can charge him with." "We'll get both," she promised, "but we need to be strategic about timing. If Dennis realizes we're onto him before we're ready, he'll accelerate his exit plan. He might flee. He might hide more assets. He might destroy evidence." "So, what do we do?" "We let him think everything is normal. We let him continue with his plan, continue moving money, continue documenting his own crimes. And when we have everything we need, when the case is airtight, we strike." I went home that night and had dinner with my husband, the man who had been stealing from me for 15 years. I smiled at him across the table. I asked about his day. I played the role of oblivious wife while silently counting down the days until his world collapsed. It was the hardest performance of my life, but I'd learned something from Dennis over the years. How to wear a mask, how to hide what you're really thinking, how to present one face to the world while planning something else entirely. He'd taught me well. He just didn't realize he'd created his own destruction. The next 3 months were a delicate dance of preparation and pretense. On the surface, nothing changed. I went to work, managed my clients, came home to make dinner and help with homework. I smiled at Dennis, made small talk about his day, slept beside him every night while knowing exactly what he was planning. Beneath the surface, I was building the case that would end him. Patricia and I met twice a week, always during my lunch hour, always at her office where there was no chance of Dennis discovering us. We reviewed evidence, planned strategy, coordinated with the forensic accountant and the private investigator. "He's getting bolder," Marcus Chen reported at one of our meetings. "He's been moving larger amounts lately, $50,000 here, $75,000 there. I think he's accelerating his timeline." "Why now?" "Crystal's pregnant." The words hit me like a physical blow. Dennis's mistress was having his baby. While I was home raising his children, trusting him to be a good father and husband, he was starting another family with another woman. "Are you sure?" "She announced it on her private social media 2 weeks ago. I have screenshots." Marcus slid his phone across the table. "She's about 4 months along. The timing suggests the conception happened around your anniversary, when Dennis was supposedly dealing with a client emergency." I looked at the photo, Crystal in a flowing dress, hands cradling her barely visible bump. Dennis beside her with a smile I'd never seen him wear with me. Pure joy, genuine happiness, the face of a man who was exactly where he wanted to be. "He's going to leave soon," I said. "He has to. If Crystal's pregnant, he can't keep living a double life much longer." "That's my assessment too," Patricia agreed. "We need to move up our timeline. File before he does. Take control of the narrative." "What about the criminal charges?" "I've been in contact with the DA's office. They're very interested in what we found. The scale of the fraud, the falsified financial documents, the systematic embezzlement from your joint accounts. They're prepared to file charges the same day we file for divorce." "So he gets served with divorce papers and criminal charges at the same time?" Patricia smiled grimly. "It's called a coordinated strike. He won't have time to run, to hide assets, to spin some story about you being the problem. He'll be on the defensive from the first moment." The hardest part of those months was the children. Madison and Ethan were old enough to know something was wrong. The tension between their parents was impossible to hide entirely. But they didn't know the specifics. They didn't know that their father was a thief and a liar, that their college funds had been stolen, that he was planning to abandon them for a new family. "Is everything okay with you and Dad?" Madison asked one night, hovering in my doorway while I pretended to read. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" "He's been weird lately, distracted, and he looks at you sometimes like—" She trailed off, struggling to articulate something her teenage brain could sense but not quite name. "I don't know. Like he's pretending." My heart broke for her, for the awareness she shouldn't have to carry, for the betrayal she was about to discover. "Your father and I are going through some things," I said carefully, "adult things. But I want you to know that no matter what happens, I love you and Ethan more than anything in the world. Nothing will ever change that." "But Dad—" "I love you," I repeated. "Whatever happens next, hold on to that, okay?" She nodded, not satisfied, but sensing that pushing further wouldn't help. She was growing up too fast, my daughter. Learning too young that the people you trust can let you down. 2 days before the coordinated strike, Dennis came home with flowers and an announcement. "I have to go to Atlanta this weekend," he said. "Conference. But when I get back, let's take the kids to the beach. A family trip. Quality time. What do you say?" I knew what the conference really was. Crystal had an ultrasound appointment that weekend. He was going to see his other child, the one growing inside the woman he'd chosen over us. "That sounds wonderful," I said, accepting his flowers. "The beach would be perfect." He smiled, and I saw the calculation behind it. The performance of a loving husband, the mask he'd worn for 18 years. He thought he was fooling me. He thought I was still the oblivious wife who trusted him completely. He had no idea what was waiting for him when he returned. The day Dennis left for his conference, I put the final pieces in place. The court papers were ready: divorce petition, emergency motion to freeze accounts, request for temporary custody, and exclusive use of the marital home. The criminal referral was complete, a thick file of evidence documenting 15 years of systematic fraud, ready to be handed to the district attorney. The forensic accountant's report was filed and waiting, every stolen dollar traced and documented. Everything was prepared for the moment Dennis walked back through our front door. I'd considered having him served in Atlanta, ambushing him in the middle of his secret life, forcing him to explain to Crystal why processed servers were appearing at her door. But Patricia advised against it. "Let him come home," she said during our final strategy session. "Let him think everything is normal. Then serve him here, on your territory, with all the evidence laid out in front of him. The shock will be greater. His ability to spin and manipulate will be diminished, and we'll have law enforcement standing by." So I waited. I spent the weekend with the kids, taking them to movies and dinner and the park. Normal activities, precious time, knowing that their lives were about to change forever. I memorized the way Ethan laughed at the cartoon we watched. I memorized the way Madison rolled her eyes at his jokes while secretly smiling. These moments felt sacred now, fragile. On Saturday night, after the kids were asleep, I sat alone in the dark living room and thought about everything that had led to this moment. 18 years of marriage, 18 years of trust. And the whole time, Dennis had been stealing from me, lying to me, building a life I knew nothing about. I didn't cry. I'd done my crying weeks ago in Patricia's office when the full scope of his betrayal became clear. Now I just felt cold, focused, ready. On Sunday evening, Dennis texted that his flight was on time and he'd be home by 7. I fed the kids early and sent them to their rooms to do homework, telling them that Daddy and I needed to have an adult conversation when he got home. "Is everything okay?" Madison asked, her face creased with worry. "It will be," I said. "I promise you, sweetheart. It will be." I wanted them insulated from what was about to happen, not present for the confrontation, not witnesses to their father's destruction. Whatever they learned about Dennis, I wanted to control how they learned it. I wanted to protect them as much as possible from the ugliness ahead. At 7:15, Dennis walked through the front door, rolling his suitcase behind him, wearing the easy smile of a man who thought he'd gotten away with everything. He was tan. Crystal's house had a pool I remembered from Marcus's photos. He'd been lounging by the pool, watching his pregnant mistress, dreaming of the life he'd have once I was gone. And now he was walking into our home with flowers and an apology for missing breakfast with the kids. "Hey, babe," he said, coming to kiss my cheek. "Miss me?" "We need to talk." Something flickered in his expression, not alarm, not yet, but wariness. The instinct of a predator sensing danger. "Can it wait? I'm exhausted from the trip." "It can't wait." I gestured toward the kitchen table, where a thick folder of documents sat waiting. "Sit down." He set down the flowers, roses, red roses, probably purchased at the airport gift shop between flights. He sat at the table, his expression shifting from weariness to confusion to the first glimmers of fear as he saw the stack of papers in front of him. "What's all this?" "Your plan," I said, opening the folder. "Every piece of it. The hidden accounts, First Coastal, Carolina Savings, that offshore thing in the Caymans you thought nobody would find, the property in Wilmington, the car you bought Crystal, the $1.4 million you've stolen from our family over the past 15 years. His face went white. I'd never seen Dennis truly afraid before. He was always so controlled, so composed, so confident in his ability to talk his way out of anything. Even now, I could see him calculating, trying to find the angle, the explanation, the manipulation that would save him. "Viv, I can explain. Can you explain this?" I slid the spreadsheet across the table. His spreadsheet, the master plan document he'd created to organize his theft and his escape. "Because according to your own notes, you've been systematically stealing from your family for over a decade. You've been funding a secret life with your mistress. You've been planning to leave me with nothing while you disappear to start your new life." "Where did you—" He grabbed the paper, staring at it like he'd seen a ghost. "I deleted this. I deleted everything. I wiped the whole computer." "You forgot about iCloud, the family sharing I set up 3 months ago, remember? So we could track the kids' locations?" I smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "Your devices were syncing to my iPad. The spreadsheet synced automatically before you woke up the next morning and deleted it from your laptop. That's not— you can't— You're a financial advisor, Dennis. You tell clients every day to back up their important documents. You should have taken your own advice." I pulled out another stack of papers. The forensic accountant traced every dollar, every account, every payment to Crystal, every lie on our tax returns, every penny you stole from Madison and Ethan's college funds. The college funds? For the first time, something that might have been shame flickered across his face. "I was going to replace that money." "You were going to replace $80,000 that you spent on your mistress's house? With what money, Dennis? You were about to drain everything else and disappear." "Vivian, listen to me." He was scrambling now, desperation seeping through his composed facade. His voice was different, higher, faster, stripped of the confident authority I'd heard for 18 years. "I was going through a hard time. Midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. But I wasn't really going to go through with it. The spreadsheet was just, I don't know, a fantasy. Something I played with but never intended to actually— You bought Crystal a house, a $680,000 house. You bought her a BMW. You've been paying her bills for 3 years. You stole our children's college funds, Madison and Ethan, your own kids, and spent the money on your pregnant mistress." His face went even whiter at that. He hadn't known that I knew about the pregnancy. "My investigator is very thorough," I continued. "He found the ultrasound photos on Crystal's private Instagram. Congratulations, by the way. I'm sure your new baby will be very happy in the house you bought with money stolen from your first children." I didn't mean for it to. This wasn't a fantasy, Dennis. This was a plan. A 15-year plan that you documented in meticulous detail. Because you're an organized person and you couldn't help organizing your own crimes. And you almost got away with it. "I'll give it back." He was begging now, the mask completely gone. "Every penny. I'll sell the house, return everything. We'll go to counseling. I'll end things with Crystal. She was a mistake, a terrible mistake, and I—" "Too late." I slid another document across the table. "You've been served." He stared at the divorce petition, at the list of accusations, at the court dates and legal language that spelled the end of everything he'd built. I watched his face cycle through emotions: denial, anger, fear, calculation, as he read. "Vivian, this doesn't have to. We can work this out. And this," I added, sliding one more paper toward him, "is from the district attorney's office. Criminal charges, fraud, embezzlement, falsifying financial documents. You're facing up to 15 years in prison, Dennis, for what you did to your own family." The sound that came out of him wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a scream. It was the sound of a man watching his entire carefully constructed life collapse in a single moment. The sound of someone realizing that they weren't nearly as clever as they thought. "You can't do this," he whispered. "I'm the father of your children. I'm your husband." "You were my husband," I corrected. "You were the father of my children. But the man I married, the man I thought I knew, never existed. You've been a stranger living in my house for 18 years, stealing from me the whole time. And now you're going to pay for every single lie." There was a knock at the door. "That'll be the police," I said, standing up. "I told you Patricia was thorough. They've been waiting outside for the past hour, ever since you walked in." "Vivian, please." "Dennis." I looked at him, really looked, for what I knew would be the last time. The man I'd loved, the man I'd trusted, the man I'd built a life with. All of it a lie. "It's over." The police came in, 2 uniformed officers and Detective Sarah Morrison from the Financial Crimes Unit. They were professional and efficient, handcuffing Dennis while he protested his innocence, reading him his rights while he called out to me. "Vivian, you don't have to do this. Think about the kids. Think about what this will do to them." "I am thinking about the kids," I said quietly. "That's exactly what I'm doing." They led him through the living room toward the front door. Madison and Ethan had come downstairs, drawn by the commotion, and stood frozen on the stairs watching their father in handcuffs. I hadn't wanted them to see, but maybe they needed to. Maybe they needed to witness this moment, the consequence of betrayal, the price of lies. I went to them immediately, pulling them both close. "Mom, what's happening?" Ethan's voice was small, scared. "Why are they taking Dad?" "Your father has done some very wrong things," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Things that hurt our family, and now he has to answer for them." "What kind of wrong things?" Madison asked. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. She'd known something was wrong for months, had been asking me about the tension between her parents, sensing the approaching storm. "Financial things. He took money that wasn't his. He lied to us for a very long time." I held them tighter. "But we're going to be okay. I promise you, we're going to be okay." Dennis was led out the front door, past the neighbors who had gathered to watch, into the back of a police cruiser. The last thing he saw, through the window of the car, was me standing in our doorway with our children beside me. I didn't wave. I didn't cry. I just watched until the car disappeared around the corner, taking the man I'd trusted with everything to face the consequences of his betrayal. The criminal trial took 6 months. Dennis's attorney tried every strategy, claiming the spreadsheet was fabricated, arguing that the hidden accounts were misunderstandings, even suggesting that I was the one who had mismanaged our finances and framed him to cover it up. The defense was creative. I'll give them that. They brought in character witnesses, clients Dennis had helped over the years, colleagues who praised his professionalism, even his own mother, who tearfully testified that her son couldn't possibly have done what the prosecution claimed. But the evidence was too comprehensive, the paper trail too clear. The spreadsheet alone would have been damning, but combined with the bank records, the property deeds, the falsified statements he'd been sending me for years, there was no reasonable doubt to exploit. The forensic accountant was particularly devastating as a witness. She walked the jury through 15 years of theft, transaction by transaction, showing exactly how Dennis had systematically drained our family's assets. She had charts and graphs that illustrated the escalating pattern, small amounts at first, growing bolder as the years passed without detection. In my 30 years of financial forensics, she testified, I have rarely seen such a methodical approach to marital fraud. Mr. Morgan didn't just steal money. He created an entire system designed to conceal his theft indefinitely while making his wife believe their finances were healthy. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Andrea Washington, made sure the jury understood the human cost behind the numbers. This isn't just about money, she said in her closing argument. This is about trust. Mrs. Morgan trusted her husband to manage their family's finances. She trusted him to protect their children's futures. She trusted him to be her partner in building a life together. And for 15 years, Mr. Morgan exploited that trust to fund a secret life with another woman while preparing to abandon his family with nothing. The jury deliberated for less than a day before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. I was sitting in the front row of the gallery when the foreman read the verdicts. Guilty of fraud. Guilty of embezzlement. Guilty of falsifying financial documents. Each word felt like a door closing. The door to the marriage I thought I had. The door to the life Dennis had pretended to share with me. But it also felt like liberation. Vindication. Proof that I hadn't been paranoid, hadn't been imagining things, hadn't been the problem. Dennis was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying financial documents. The judge, Catherine Morrison, a stern woman in her 60s, had some words for him before pronouncing sentence. Mr. Morgan, in my 3 decades on the bench, I have seen many cases of financial crimes. I have seen embezzlers steal from corporations, from charities, from government programs, but stealing from your own family, from the wife who trusted you, from the children whose futures you were supposed to protect, that is a particular kind of betrayal. Dennis stood at the defense table in his prison jumpsuit, shoulders slumped, looking nothing like the confident financial advisor who had stood at our wedding, promising to never give me a reason to doubt him. You used your professional expertise to commit crimes against the people who loved you most, Judge Morrison continued. You exploited the sacred trust that a wife places in a husband, that children place in a father. You are not a financial advisor who made mistakes. You are a predator who chose his own family as prey. And this court will sentence you accordingly. 8 years, he'll be in his mid-50s when he gets out, if he serves the full sentence. By then, Madison will be a grown woman, possibly with a family of her own. Ethan will have built an entire adult life. They'll have learned to live without him. They'll have learned what his love was really worth. The divorce was finalized while Dennis was awaiting trial. With the criminal conviction, there was no custody dispute. No judge would grant unsupervised access to a convicted financial criminal who had stolen from his own children. I received full custody, the house, and a court order requiring Dennis to pay full restitution. Patricia was relentless in pursuing the hidden assets. The house in Wilmington was sold. The proceeds returned to me. The BMW was repossessed. The hidden bank accounts were frozen and liquidated. Every dollar we could find was traced and recovered, but we couldn't find everything. Dennis had been moving money for 15 years, and some of it had disappeared into places we couldn't track. Cash transactions, overseas transfers, the fog of financial complexity he'd used to hide his crimes. Whether I'll ever see full restitution is unclear. Dennis's assets were largely depleted by legal fees and the demands of his double life. Crystal, for her part, abandoned him the moment the charges were filed. I heard, through the grapevine, Charlotte is a small city, and word travels, that she moved to Florida with the baby, wanted nothing to do with the scandal. When the money stopped flowing, and the future Dennis had promised her evaporated, Crystal discovered that she wasn't interested in the man himself, only in what he could provide. I don't know if Dennis ever really loved her, or if Crystal was just another prop in the fantasy life he was constructing. Maybe he loved the idea of her. The younger woman, the fresh start, the escape from the responsibilities he'd grown tired of. But love wasn't something Dennis understood. Not really. Love requires sacrifice, requires putting someone else's needs above your own. Dennis had never done that for anyone. I don't feel sorry for him. I tried to, early on. Tried to find the man I'd married somewhere beneath the criminal, the liar, the thief. But that man never existed. He was always a performance, a mask worn to extract what Dennis wanted from the world. The man I loved for 18 years was a fiction. And now the fiction is in prison, where it belongs. The children are healing, slowly and imperfectly. Madison, now 15, has become my fiercest ally. Mature beyond her years, protective of her brother, determined to build a life nothing like her father's. She's in therapy twice a week, working through the betrayal, learning to trust again. I keep wondering what was real, she told me once. The vacations we took, the holidays, the times he said he loved me, was any of it real? Or was he just playing a role the whole time? I don't know, sweetheart, I admitted. I've asked myself the same question. Maybe parts of it were real, in whatever limited way he was capable of. But the important thing is that our love for each other is real. That will never change, no matter what your father did. She nodded, wiping away tears. She's going to be okay. I can see it. She's strong, stronger than I was at her age, and she's learning lessons now that will protect her for the rest of her life. I want to be a forensic accountant, she told me recently, like the woman who helped us find all the money Dad stole. I want to help other families like ours. My heart broke and soared at the same time. My daughter was going to take her trauma and turn it into purpose. She was going to use what we went through to help others. That's not the childhood I wanted for her, but it might be exactly the woman she needs to become. Ethan, at 13, is quieter about his pain. He doesn't talk about Dennis much, refers to him as him or that person rather than Dad. His therapist says this is normal, a way of protecting himself from feelings too big to process. In time, he'll be ready to deal with what happened. For now, he just needs to know he's safe and loved. He asked me once if he was going to turn out like his father. No, I told him firmly. You are not your father. You get to choose who you become, and I've watched you choose kindness over and over. I've watched you be honest even when it was hard. I've watched you take care of your sister when things were scary. That's who you are, Ethan. That's who you're going to be. He cried then, really cried, for the first time since the arrest. I held him for a long time. My little boy who wasn't so little anymore, who'd had to grow up too fast because his father was a monster. They've both asked, at different times, whether Dennis really loved them, whether anything about their childhood was real. I don't have easy answers. I'm still wrestling with those questions myself. I think he loved you in the way he was, capable of loving, I told Madison once. But his capability was limited. His love was always conditional, on what you could give him, on how you could serve his needs. Real love isn't like that. Real love puts the other person first. Is that what you have for us? That's exactly what I have for you. Unconditional. Forever. No matter what. I sold the house in Myers Park. Too many memories, too much deception embedded in its walls, and bought a smaller place in a different neighborhood. Fresh start. New life. A home that belongs only to us. The new house has a garden where I'm learning to grow vegetables and a screened porch where I read on summer evenings. It's modest compared to what we had, but it's ours. Really ours. No hidden mortgages, no lies in the foundation. I'm still a CPA, still building a career that matters to me. But I've shifted my focus over the past year. I now specialize in forensic accounting, helping other victims of financial abuse trace stolen assets and build cases against their abusers. The work is meaningful in ways my previous career never was. Every case I solve feels like justice, like redemption, like proof that the truth always comes out eventually. I've started dating again, cautiously, with a man named Thomas who works in software and has no interest whatsoever in managing anyone's finances but his own. I'll be honest with you, I told him on our second date. My ex-husband was a financial criminal. I have significant trust issues around money. If that's a deal breaker, I understand. My ex-wife cheated on me with my brother, he replied. I have significant trust issues around family gatherings. If that's a deal breaker, I understand. We laughed. Real laughter. The kind that comes from shared wounds and the absurdity of trying to love again despite them. It's early, and we're both cautious, but there's hope there. There's hope everywhere, actually. More than I would have believed possible when I was sitting in that kitchen at 2 a.m., staring at the spreadsheet that revealed my entire marriage as a lie. If I've learned anything from this experience, it's that technology can expose what people try to hide. Dennis thought he was so careful, deleting files, covering tracks, erasing evidence of his double life. He didn't understand that in the digital age, truly deleting something is almost impossible. There's always a backup, a sync, a trace somewhere in the cloud. iCloud saved me. That one file, automatically syncing to my iPad before Dennis could destroy it, gave me the evidence I needed to take back my life. Without it, I might still be living in the fog, suspecting something was wrong but unable to prove it, doubting my own perceptions while my husband systematically stole everything I had. The irony isn't lost on me. Dennis was a financial advisor. He spent his career telling people to back up their important documents, to protect their digital assets, to never rely on a single copy of anything important. And then he created the most important document of his criminal life and forgot that it would automatically sync to devices he didn't control. His own expertise betrayed him. His own advice came back to destroy him. Trust your instincts, but verify with evidence. That's the lesson. I knew something was wrong for years. The inconsistencies, the explanations that didn't quite fit, the feeling in my gut that my husband was hiding something. But I couldn't prove it until I started looking, until I hired the investigator, until I set up the iCloud sharing that captured his confession. Instinct tells you where to look. Evidence tells you what you found. You need both. I've also learned that the people who seem most trustworthy can be the most dangerous. Dennis was a financial advisor, someone whose entire career was built on managing other people's money, on being trusted with their futures and their children's education funds. He used that credibility to steal from his own family, counting on my trust to keep me blind. Don't trust credentials. Don't trust charm. Don't trust anything you can't verify independently. Love someone? Yes. But always keep your eyes open. Always know where the money is going. Always have access to your own financial information. These aren't signs of distrust. They're signs of wisdom. The healing journey is ongoing. There are still moments when I flash back to the night I read that spreadsheet, when I realized that everything I believed about my marriage was a lie. Trauma doesn't disappear just because justice was served. It leaves marks that last forever. in my ability to trust, in my children's relationship with love, in the way we all look at the world now. But I'm stronger now, wiser, better equipped to protect myself and my children from people who would use our trust against us. And I'm building something new, a life that's honest, a home that's safe, a future that belongs to us. My children are growing up knowing that their mother fought for them, that when everything fell apart, I didn't give up. I gathered evidence, built a case, and brought their father to justice. That's not the childhood I wanted for them, but it's the lesson they needed to learn, that the truth matters, that lies have consequences, that the people who love you will fight for you no matter what. If you're watching this and something in my story feels familiar, if you're married to someone who controls the money, who deflects your questions, who makes you feel paranoid for noticing things that don't add up, please trust yourself. Start documenting, seek help, and check your iCloud settings. Check your shared storage. Check everywhere digital files might be backed up without your spouse knowing. You never know what evidence might be sitting right in front of you, waiting to be discovered. Thank you for watching my story. If it resonated with you, if it made you feel less alone or more determined to find the truth, please subscribe to this channel for more stories of women who survived. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And leave a comment telling me what you think. I read every single one, and your words mean more than you know. Until next time, take care of yourselves, trust your instincts, verify everything, and remember, the delete button doesn't erase the truth. It just hides it until someone knows where to look. The cloud remembers everything, and sometimes that's exactly what saves you.